In the cold dark between galaxies, something moved. It was not a comet. It was not an asteroid. It was shaped like no ship ever recorded in alien history. The object was so big that a small moon could hide behind it. It drifted at a steady, deliberate pace, its surface black and silent, absorbing every ray of light. It had no lights, no markings, no signs of life. It had moved with purpose. Across the stars, deep in the meeting halls of the Galactic High Council, alarms blared. Sensors had picked up the object weeks ago, but now it had crossed the border into known space. The readings were impossible. The ship's size was beyond their engineering limits. It should not exist. El Dorado, the council's oldest member, stared at the hologram. "That is human," he said, his voice trembling. The younger councilors exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had not ventured beyond its own sector for more than 100 years. The last time they had, it had ended in a war the galaxy still remembered. But this ship, this giant, was beyond anything humanity had ever shown. Some thought it was a bluff, a weapon meant to scare them. Others whispered of an ancient project, one spoken of in intercepted human messages long ago. They called it Project Leviathan. The name alone carried weight. It was said to be a moving fortress, a self-sustaining world ship capable of crossing the void between galaxies without ever stopping. The official records claimed it had been abandoned before completion. The council voted to send a scout fleet, small, fast ships capable of getting close without being detected. It would gather information, take scans, and report back. The fleet jumped into the sector where the massive shape drifted. Captain Zevron, leading the scouts, was the first to see it with his own eyes through the viewports. His voice broke when he spoke over comms. "It's not drifting," he said. "It's coming straight toward the galactic core." The ship did not answer hails, did not acknowledge scans. The closer they got, the more their instruments failed. Energy readings became unreadable, as if the very space around the ship was bending. Its hull was strange: no seams, no panels, no sign of construction. It looked like a single piece of black metal carved by something ancient. And worse, sometimes the surface moved. One scout ship tried to circle around. It vanished from sensors in less than a second. No explosion, no debris. It was simply gone. The remaining scouts froze in place, their captains arguing over comms. Some wanted to retreat. Others demanded they continue. The council back home ordered them to hold position and wait for further instructions. Hours later, they received a transmission, not from the scouts, but from the ship itself. The voice was human, calm, precise. "Do not approach. Do not scan. Do not interfere. We carry quarantine cargo." Then the signal cut off. The words spread through the council chambers like wildfire. Quarantine cargo. What could be so dangerous? That humans would build a ship the size of a small moon to carry it? Some said it was a super weapon. Others thought it was a biological plague. A few believed it might be something far worse, something humans feared. So much they would rather lock it away forever than destroy it. The scouts were ordered to board the ship and find the truth. Captain Zevron hesitated. The human voice had not sounded threatening. It had sounded warning, as if they were doing the galaxy a favor by staying away. But orders were orders. Small boarding craft left the scouts and moved toward the black surface. As they drew close, they saw no airlocks, no doors, no windows. Only a vast, featureless wall of metal. Then slowly, a circular section began to turn, revealing an opening large enough for them to enter. No lights came from within, only darkness. The scouts floated inside. The black metal swallowed their ship whole. Instruments failed again. The air was heavy, thick with static. And somewhere in that silence, Captain Zevron thought he heard a faint, slow sound, like something large. Breathing. Back in the council chambers, El Dorado sat in silence. He had seen enough in his long life to know one thing: humans did not give warnings lightly. If they said something was dangerous, it was because they knew exactly how dangerous it was. One scout transmission broke the silence. A short, frantic burst. "We found pods. Hundreds. Thousands. Most are sealed. One is the message cut off. On the edge of the galaxy, the giant human ship kept moving, silent and unstoppable, carrying its hidden cargo closer to the heart of civilization. And somewhere inside, whatever was locked away was not sleeping. Anymore, the Leviathan drifted like a shadow in the void, its size so great that even the largest alien battleships looked like drifting debris beside it. For 2 days, the alien scout fleet kept its distance, sending cautious scans toward the ship. Each time their data came back incomplete, scrambled by strange interference. It was as if the Leviathan refused to be measured, as if the very idea of knowing it was unwelcome. Then the voice came again. This time it was clearer, colder. Final warning, do not approach. Quarantine breach risk, extreme. The alien captains argued over the meaning. Was it a bluff? A trick to keep them away? Or was there truly something on board so dangerous that even humans feared it? Admiral Korvath of the Dominion Navy didn't believe in human warnings. He'd fought against them during the old frontier wars and thought he knew their games. Humans. Bluff. They posture, he told his officers. They don't frighten me. We board it. We take it. We claim the weapon. Boarding teams were prepared elite soldiers wearing armored suits, equipped with cutting torches, scanners, and high-energy rifles. 4 dropships launched, heading straight for the Leviathan's surface. The black hull reflected nothing. There. Light swallowed whole by its darkness. It felt less like approaching a ship, and more like flying toward a cliff that stretched forever. The first team reached the surface and reported no resistance. Began cutting through, but the metal was strange. The torch's flame hissed against it, but instead of sparks, the material seemed to soften like heated flesh. This isn't metal, one soldier muttered over the cum. After 15 minutes of cutting, they broke through and found themselves staring into a second layer of hull, this one pulsing faintly as if it had veins. Before anyone could react, a low, rhythmic thump began to echo through the boarding team's helmets. At first, it was faint. Then it grew louder, a heartbeat. A massive one. In the alien flagship's control room, the tactical officer frowned at his readings. Admiral, I'm detecting movement inside the ship, something big. Korvath smirked. Good, that means the weapon is alive. Take it before the humans arrive. But the humans were already there. Unseen by the aliens, small figures moved in the Leviathan's control corridors. They watched the intruders through black glass monitors, their faces grim. One officer leaned toward the captain and whispered, "They've breached the outer layer." The captain's reply was cold and certain. Then they have already doomed themselves. Back on the hall, the boarding teams pushed deeper. They entered a vast chamber filled with giant pods, each taller than a soldier, covered in frost and faintly glowing. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, all sealed, except for one. The glass on the nearest pod was shattered from the inside. The frost around it was melted, the floor slick with some dark fluid. A suit camera turned to capture the whole, and something moved in the shadows beyond. The feed shook violently, screams cutting through the cums, then static. One by one, the other teams reported contact, something fast, something that didn't show on sensors. On the alien flagship, Admiral Korvath shouted for his teams to report, but all he heard was the last transmission from the first squad. It's not a weapon. It's not. Then silence. Inside the Leviathan, the heartbeat grew louder. The alien fleet hung in the dark like a chain of glowing beads, surrounding the Leviathan at a cautious distance. Their engines burned softly, weapons hot and ready. No one dared to fire yet. The ship had not attacked them directly, but whatever happened to the boarding teams had shaken even the most fearless commanders. The cums were filled with fragmented, panicked transmissions from moments before the channels went dead metal screeching, muffled shouting, and that strange, slow heartbeat that seemed to echo through the static. Admiral Korvath paced the command deck of his flagship, jaw tight, eyes locked on the massive black wall of the human ship that filled the viewports. It's still not moving, his first officer said quietly, almost as if afraid the Leviathan might hear. Not moving doesn't mean harmless. Corvath growled. Then, without warning, the Leviathan did move not through space, but in its skin. The outer hull rippled, black plates sliding against one another like muscle beneath skin. Massive shapes. Pushed outward, and for the first time, alien crews realized the ship's armor wasn't solid. It was layered, flexible, alive. A section of the hull peeled back, revealing a massive slit of darkness. From that darkness, something emerged. At first it was just a faint shimmer, like heat rising off metal. Then the shimmer solidified, stretching into a long, slender form that moved like liquid in the void. It had no engines, no light, yet it drifted with perfect control. Its skin shifted from black to deep crimson, patterns rippling across it, like veins beneath glass. Alien sensors tried to scan it, but every reading failed, registering nothing more than empty space. "What is that?" the tactical officer whispered. Corvath stared. "Our prize," he said with a grim smile still. Refusing to believe this was anything more than a powerful human bioweapon, he ordered a destroyer to intercept it, to bring it in for containment. The destroyer's captain approached carefully, surrounding the drifting form with bright searchlights. The thing didn't react at first. Then it turned not its body, but its attention. Even from millions of kilometers away, the alien crew swore they could feel its gaze. The destroyer opened its docking bay doors. The creature twisted suddenly, its body elongating, splitting into sharp, tendril-like shapes. Before the alien crew could react, it vanished from every sensor. An instant later, it was inside the destroyer. No breach alarms, no decompression. A flicker of shadow, and then screaming over the coms. On the alien flagship, Corvath demanded a visual feed. The last camera aboard the destroyer showed the thing moving through corridors without touching the floor, without slowing, cutting, through armored soldiers like they weren't there. The feed died in a hiss of static. "Admiral," the science officer said, her voice pale with fear. "Whatever that is, it's not human, and it's not a weapon in the way we understand." Before Corvath could respond, another voice filled the bridge, calm, steady, and human. It came through every channel at once, bypassing encryption, as if the Leviathan was speaking directly into their minds. "You were warned," the voice said. "It is awake now. You cannot kill it. You can only survive. Right. If you let us take it away." The message ended, but the meaning lingered. The alien crews glanced at one another uneasily. For the first time, some of them wondered if the humans were not their enemies. But their only hope. That was when the lights flickered. Across. The fleet power levels dipped. On the Leviathan's hull, more sections began to open. The heartbeat returned, now faster, closer. Echoing through the blackness between ships, something else was coming out. The heartbeat was no longer a feint. Background sounded pounded through the coms, rattling inside every alien ship like a damn war drum. And the alien fleet tightened formation around the Leviathan. Weapons locked on the sections of hull that were now peeling back like the petals of some enormous black flower. From the widening gaps, more shadows emerged. At first they looked like drifting debris, but then they moved with intent, gliding silently through space. Each one was different, some long and spear-like, others massive and hunched. Their forms shifting and folding, as if they weren't bound by solid structure. They were not ships. They were not alive in any familiar sense. They were something in between. The first creature's leak in Crimson Vein was already gone from sensors, lost somewhere in the chaos. But now there were three more, each larger than the last. The smallest was the size of a frigate. The largest blotted out stars as it passed. Panic gripped the alien fleet. Captains shouted over each other, some begging for permission to retreat, others calling for full bombardment. Admiral Corvath silenced them with a sharp command: "Fire everything." Hundreds of plasma bolts, railgun slugs, and energy beams lanced through space, slamming into the things that had emerged. For a moment, the void lit up like a small sun. When the glare faded, the fleet's confidence died instantly. The creatures were still there. The weapons had barely scratched them. Their strange bodies had absorbed or deflected every shot. Then one of the things moved. The largest creature extended what looked like a dozen jagged wings and launched itself at a cruiser. In a single fluid strike, it tore through the ship's shields and hull, splitting it open like paper. Fragments of glowing metal spun out into space, carrying frozen bodies with them. Another creature latched onto a destroyer, wrapping its tendrils around it. The destroyer's captain tried to overload the engines in a last act of defiance. But before he could, the creature's tendrils pierced the hull, and the ship went dark lifeless in seconds. Through it all, Leviathan remained. Still, no weapons fired from its surface, no move to defend itself. But inside, the human crew worked in silence. They monitored every movement of the creatures, tracking their speed, their patterns. Finally, the human captain activated the comms again. His voice cut through the chaos with an unsettling calm. "You've released more than you can see," he said. "One is hunting you. The others are searching. For each other." Korvath slammed a fist onto the console. "Why didn't you destroy them before bringing them here?" The captain's answer was like ice. "'Cause we can't. And neither can you. We can only contain them. That was the purpose of this ship." The admiral was about to respond when a sudden alert rang out. Something had boarded the flagship. Not a human shuttle. Not a ship at all. Crimson creature had returned. It was inside. Every soldier on the command deck grabbed their weapons as the lights began to flicker. Somewhere deep in the ship, the slow heartbeat was joined by another sound, something like breathing. Long, deliberate, and far too close. Then, the first scream came from the lower decks.
"It didn't stop."
The screams from the lower decks of the flagship were cut short, not fading naturally, but ending as if the voices had been swallowed whole. The cum feeds from those areas went black one by one, replaced by a faint static that carried something. Beneath it, a wet, dragging sound on the bridge. Admiral Korvath's officers worked in a panic, sealing blast doors and rerouting power to internal defenses. The ship's automated turrets came online, targeting movement in the lower corridors. But each time they fired, the sensors registered no hits, no impacts on the empty air. The crimson-veined creature moved like smoke, slipping between solid walls, appearing for seconds before vanishing again. Then, all across the bridge, the temperature dropped. Frost crept along the edges of the viewports. A low vibration passed through the deck plating, not from engines, but from inside the ship. The crew didn't know it yet, but the creature was not alone. Back on the Leviathan, the human captain watched the alien fleet's chaos unfold on his tactical display. Around him, his crew moved with quiet precision, their faces grim. An ensign spoke without looking up. "Captain, containment integrity is down to 84%. The others will breach if we don't seal them soon." The captain's eyes never left the display. "And if we don't get them back in the vault, this galaxy won't last a year." One of the senior officers turned toward him. "They won't listen to us. Still think we brought these things here as weapons." The captain's expression hardened. "Then it's time they learned the truth." A new broadcast went out across the entire sector, overriding every alien channel. The humans didn't bother with formal greetings. The message began with 3 words, heavy and cold. "This ship is a prison." He explained briefly, without theatrics, that the creatures were not human creations, but remnants of something far older. Humanity had found them drifting in the ruins of a dead galaxy, a place where every star was dark and every world was broken. No records, no survivors, only these things, moving silently in the dark. As if they were the last living memory of that place, the Leviathan was not built for war, the captain said. It was built to move, to carry these beings forever, far from inhabited space, never stopping long enough for them to escape. But the boarding actions had damaged the inner seals. Now containment was failing. On the alien flagship, the bridge. Crew listened in silence as the truth sank in. But for Admiral Korvath, the words didn't change anything. "Even if this is true," he said through clenched teeth, "they're here now, and that means we need to fight. Fight." The captain's voice echoed back over the comms. "You don't fight a star going nova, you get out of its way. Right now, the only thing between you and extinction is us, the bridge." Lights flickered again. Somewhere below, another section of the ship went dark. The sensors picked up movement to more of the creatures had left the Leviathan, drifting toward other alien ships in the formation. For the first time since this began, Corvath felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. This wasn't a battle. It was a hunt, and his fleet was the prey. The hunt had begun. Across the alien formation, ships were dying without a single shot being fired in return. One moment a vessel's lights burned bright in the void, the next it was dark, silent, drifting without life. The creatures didn't tear their prey apart in a frenzy. They dismantled them with slow, deliberate precision. Whole sections of hull vanished as if cut away by invisible blades. From the bridge of the Leviathan, the human crew tracked it all in grim silence. 3 hostiles free, reported the tactical officer. 4th is breaching containment. Estimated time, 6 minutes. The captain didn't hesitate. Deploy hunters. Panels along the Leviathan's flanks slid open with a deep mechanical groan, releasing swarms of sleek, spear-shaped drones. Each one was armed with weapons that shimmered with pale blue light tools, not meant for war, but for capture. They fanned out, their engines whispered quiet, moving like predators, scenting the air. From the alien ships still intact, crews watched in awe as the hunters passed. These machines didn't look like any human technology they'd seen before. Were fast, impossibly fast, darting in arcs that defied normal thrust physics. They moved with purpose, always angling toward the nearest creature. Admiral Corvath stared at the Leviathan's display feed on his console, realizing for the first time that the humans hadn't come here to threaten the galaxy. They had come to protect it, and the aliens, in their fear and arrogance, had just torn the lock off the cage. One of the hunters caught up to the crimson-veined creature in the wreckage of a battleship. It fired a lance of blue light that wrapped around the thing like liquid glass, slowing it mid-movement. The creature thrashed, its form shifting into shapes that shouldn't exist, but the light held it, dragging it backward toward the Leviathan's waiting bays. But as the humans recaptured one threat, the others were moving. The largest of them, bigger than any ship present, descended toward a dying moon on the edge of the system. Its movements were slower, heavier, as if the void itself resisted its presence. The human scanners caught a pulse coming from deep inside the moon's crust. The captain's face hardened. It's calling something. The words spread through the Leviathan's crew like a cold wind. If these things could communicate, then there were more. Somewhere hidden in the dark between the stars, others would hear the call. The tactical officer's voice cracked as he read the new sensor data. Captain, we're picking up a signal. Massive object inbound from deep intergalactic space. ETA. 40 hours. The bridge fell silent. The incoming object was far larger than the Leviathan. Whatever it was answering the call. The captain leaned forward, his voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. Prepare the last lock. If that thing arrives, we seal everything inside, no matter the cost. Out beyond the Leviathan, the hunters closed in on their targets, blue light flaring against the endless dark. But the galaxy had just learned a truth it wasn't ready for. These creatures weren't just escapees, they were scouts. And the real terror hadn't arrived yet. The 40 hours that followed felt like the slow turning of a blade. Every surviving ship in the alien fleet was pulled into the Leviathan's shadow, its massive hull serving as both shield and warning. The hunters moved tirelessly, dragging captured creatures back into reinforced stasis bays. Each bay was sealed with layers of metal, energy fields, and something the aliens didn't recognize. It's an invisible barrier that made their sensors hum with static, but the largest of the escapees still roamed free. It lingered near the dying moon, anchored by tendrils of black matter burrowed into the crust. Whatever it was calling to was getting closer. Admiral Corvath, stripped of his earlier arrogance, stood on the Leviathan's bridge alongside the human captain. He watched the humans work calm, focused, without a single wasted movement. Why not just destroy them? He asked quietly. Surely there's a weapon there, isn't? The captain said without looking at him. You can't kill. A black hole with bullets? You can only contain it. A deep vibration passed through the Leviathan's hull. At first, the aliens thought it was weapons fire. Then they realized it was sound. A single, distant tone reverberating through space. Itself. Every creature aboard the Leviathan sealed, or not reacted at once. The stasis bays trembled, reinforced locks straining. The largest one on the moon tore itself free, screaming without a mouth, its form unraveling into impossible shapes before reforming again. The hunters moved in, dozens of them, weaving a net of blue light. The creature fought with such force that 2 hunters were torn apart instantly, their wreckage spinning into the void. But the humans did not back down. They tightened the net, forcing the thing upward, toward the Leviathan's yawning containment doors. And then the incoming signal arrived on sensors. The object was almost too big to comprehend, an obsidian arc stretching across the stars, its edges jagged, dripping with streams of black energy that devoured light. It moved without thrust, gliding on some ancient, impossible momentum. Every alien who saw it understood instinctively. This was not an enemy you fought. This was an ending that traveled. The human captain gave one last order. Seal the last lock. The Leviathan's bays roared open, swallowing the netted creature. Whole magnetic clamps slammed shut. Energy fields flared like suns. And then the ship's engines, hidden until now, ignited with a force that bent the very stars. The Leviathan turned away from the arc-shaped horror and began to move, dragging its prisoners into the deepest stretch of uncharted space. Admiral Korvath gripped the railing as the view of the galaxy. They began to shrink behind them. "Where are you taking them?" The captain finally looked at him. "To the edge," he said. "Farther than you've ever been. Farther than you should ever go." As the Leviathan vanished into the dark, the alien fleet shattered, silent, and Humboldt was left to stare at the distant, unstoppable shape moving toward the galactic rim. It would never reach them now. Not this time. But they all knew what the humans knew. It would keep searching, and if it ever found the Leviathan, again, nothing in any galaxy would be enough to stop it.